Welcome to Software Sophistication, Episode 3, the show where we talk about problems in the Elixir, Phoenix, and software space and their subsequent solutions. Joe, what's our first question?
Sabri asks, what content do you recommend for a person who wants to learn Elixir and Phoenix for a scaling application?
So for a scaling application, in my career, I've needed to work on performance inside of a Phoenix or Elixir application very few times. So I did a stint at an NFT startup called MetaLink, and we had 15,000 users at the time. We were polling the blockchain for getting people's transactions and NFTs every 30 seconds. It was doing, and it was also a chat system. So over WebSockets, we were just sending chat messages with 15,000 active users. And when we deployed that application, the vast majority of all the response times were under 100 milliseconds. Every once in a while, we'd have a slow endpoint, but for the vast majority, compared to my experience in the Ruby on Rails ecosystem, I've not had to worry about performance in the Elixir and Phoenix ecosystem. When I have run into those problems are always have to do with Ecto in the database layer, where you have a query that's inefficient. So I would recommend reading the Ecto query docs, and the Programming Ecto book would prepare you for any problems that you have in the Elixir and Phoenix ecosystem. In general, you're not going to run into any problems, but when you do, it's always going to be with respect to a query that needs to be optimized.
Hamilton submitted a story with this question, so getting into it. Hamilton was going to a meeting to talk about a major new feature with a higher up at his tech company. Hamilton has been working for this company for a year now, but he still hasn't been given access to the production data. In the meeting, the higher up asked him to demo the feature, but Hamilton didn't have the demo set up because he thought they were just talking about it. So he tried to set it up on the fly, but it didn't work due to his lack of access. He had the feature in the test environments working, but he looked incompetent with his boss due to the red tape. So his question is, what do you do when your team sets you up to fail like that? How do you manage those office politics so he can get back to programming?
So Hamilton, you've run into a very difficult situation. The good news is that I think all of us have been somewhat set up, unfortunately, because we do deal with human beings. And the very first thing you need to realize in a situation like this is that you are under the gun, you are putting on a presentation, and just like in the world of theatrics, the show must go on. So when you find yourself in a situation where, like for example, you're giving a conference speech and your slides don't turn on, that's your time to not say, oh, my slides don't turn on and, well, I'm not gonna be able to give this presentation. It's your time to grab the mic, step in front of the podium, and give your presentation off the cuff without the slides, because the show must go on. So in that situation, you need to try and find the win. Whether that be, like for example, if you can't get it working in the production environment, show the higher up it working on your development environment or the test environment. This has happened to me multiple times when we're on a demo day with a client and we're trying to display something on the staging server, and for some reason something unexpected happens. Rather than say, oh, like we messed up, we then at this point switch to our development machines, where this is our place of power, our place of control, where we know we have the thing working, and then you can still give the demo, show the client that the thing was done. Though you ran into an issue, the show must go on. The second part of this, so if that's not good enough, right? Say you're not able to achieve a successful demo and things blow up in your face. You're not able to give the presentation on stage with off the cuff for some reason, and you have to take the L, you have to take your loss. In that situation, this is where you need to find out how to reprimand your boss. So how do you reprimand your boss safely? The way you do that is that you ask questions, or you tell ancillary stories to the situation to educate your boss. So with that being said, in this situation, I would have a meeting, set up a meeting with my boss, and I would say, let's just say the boss is named Justin. Justin, how could I have better prepared for that meeting? Justin, is it possible for me to know if I'm giving a client demo? I didn't expect that to happen. What ways can I better prepare myself for situations like this in the future? So by asking questions, you're not making a pointed statement. You're not stabbing your boss with your words. You're safely reprimanding, because then it gives your boss the opportunity to recognize that they made a mistake without you actively saying so. Back at Zencase, when I was an engineering manager, there was an older developer named Jay, relative to me at the time. I was 27, 28. I was running a team of 7, and one of the developers was a guy named Jay. So Jay was very good with his words and just Army veteran, and every time in our one-on-ones, he would always ask me questions about decisions I made as an engineering manager, and I'd always leave the meetings and I'd always say to myself, wow, Jay really thinks I'm a bad manager. But I always respected the way he communicated it to me because he never said it to me directly, but he was always coaching me with his stories and with his questions. Because he was an older guy, much more experienced, he was coaching me, his boss, as a younger man by the questions and the stories, the questions he'd ask me and the stories he'd tell me. Then I'd leave the meeting, I'd feel great about it, and then I'd say to myself, wow, Jay was really telling me that I'm actually a bad boss. I learned a lot from Jay. Jay Dorsey, if you're seeing this, thank you for those coaching sessions, even though it was, a one-on-one meeting with, I guess, your boss at the time. In addition to those questions, finally, you need to make sure whether you're dealing with someone who actually did try to set you up to fail. So when I was talking to Hamilton about this, his very last thing he said was, I feel like I was being set up. And that's a very dangerous situation to be in at a job. And what you need to find out is when you're asking those questions, what you want to do when you're asking those questions, it's less about getting the answer and more finding out if you have a friend or a foe sitting in front of you. So what you want to do is you want to analyze their body language. When they respond, when you ask the question, do they get uncomfortable? Do they start covering their mouth, or looking around? You really want to figure out what situation you're actually in. Was it an honest mistake, or is somebody legitimately trying to set you up to fail? So if it's an honest mistake, hopefully your boss recognizes by the nature of your questions and your stories that they made a mistake. And if they have any sense of humility, they'll recognize that. If they are trying to set you up, and you can tell by the body language that you got, this is a situation that I have run into in my career twice. If you are being set up to fail, then it is at this point, by analyzing that body language, because we live in the world of humans. You're never going to get a precise answer in this world. We live in the world of gray, not black and white. You're going to have to make a decision based off of limited information. And so if you are being set up, number one, you need to find another job. But number two, you need to figure out what tactics that person employed to try and manipulate you to get set up. Here's an example from my own life. I was at a company where I was a senior developer on a team, and my boss was the lead developer. And because it was an early stage startup, I saw the need for me to perform some engineering manager responsibilities, writing up user stories and just setting up the team for success as if I was the manager of the team. But that led to me getting reprimanded in regards to my coding performance. At the time, I actually made the mistake. So one of the issues with my personality is that I can be too direct at times. I actually told my lead developer in our one-on-ones that I felt that he was setting me up. You don't want to make the same mistake as me. You don't want to let the person who's trying to manipulate you and set you up, you don't want to let them know that you're onto them. Let a snake lie in the grass. What you want to know is that the snake is there. So once I knew that this guy was trying to set me up, because in those meetings where he was talking about my performance, when he knew, as a developer, when he knew I was performing other responsibilities, I'm keeping the story simple, but it was clear to me that this man was setting me up. Instead, what I should have done was I should have declined doing the engineering manager responsibilities and kept on my coding. Essentially, you want to see what they're doing. What is the manipulation that they're setting up? You want to allow. So, and unfortunately, in this situation, it happened to you, Hamilton. And so, if this person was setting you up, you recognize the tactics with which they use to set you up, and then you develop a counter. You don't tell your opponent what the counter is, like I used to do. And then you just set it up so that you're just dodging. You're just dodging the manipulation to set you up to fail. That's what you do if you find yourself in a situation where someone is setting you up to fail. So we talked about 3 things here, Hamilton, which is 1, the show must go on. You need to try and win in the situation. Under the gun, you need to find the win. If you can't find the win and you take your loss, you need to find a way, you need to get a meeting with your boss and reprimand them softly by the use of asking questions and telling ancillary stories that have the lesson that you want your boss to know. Third, when you're asking those questions, you want to figure out if the person in front of you, by reading their body language, if this person is a friend that has made an honest mistake, or is this person a foe that is trying to set you up to fail? Do they feel threatened by you? That's probably the typical situation where your boss would be setting you up to fail. If they are a foe, you want to figure out what tactics they're using. Don't tell them that you recognize said tactics, and then counter them the best way you can.
So the next question is based on a question that you asked in 2020, Josh. How do you make a Phoenix test suite faster?
So making a Phoenix test suite faster, that was actually not my direct question. So the setup here is that I was celebrating how fast the Phoenix LiveView test suite was on Twitter. In December 2020, I tweeted, the test suite for the entire Phoenix LiveView application I'm working on runs in 3.1 seconds with no custom configuration. A guy that we mutual follow each other, a guy named Isaac Yanamoto, responded. He said, out of curiosity, are you running them async? And so I responded, I said, I'm not actually running them async. And then I respond, oh my goodness, I just ran it 10 times and it's twice as fast at 1.7 seconds. So that's like I said twice as fast, but it's like a 46% speed increase, or a 46% speed reduction from 3.1 seconds to 1.7 seconds. This was so amazing that I ended up going to ElixirConf the next year. 9 months later, I gave a speech at ElixirConf 2021, Phoenix LiveView production patterns, and all it is just a comma async true after your cases, con case, data case, EX unit case. That's all you need to do, and what that will allow your machine to do is run all your tests on all the cores of your machine. So if you have a quad core machine or an 8-core machine, your test suite will go from running single threaded to quad threaded or using all 8 cores. And this is the fastest way to get your test suite 2 times, 4 times, 8 times faster. And so I at the presentation, I said, hey, Isaac, for some reason, I was inspired. I said, Isaac, are you here? Like, testing faster. I don't know if Isaac, there's a guy that we both follow each other on Twitter. I know you're here. Isaac, are you in the crowd? Can you raise your hand? Isaac, my man, you know what I'm about to say next. I was doing what I normally do on Twitter, say about 6 or 8 months ago, which is talk trash. And Isaac was right there in the crowd. A man that I had never met before in my life, that we just, casually tweet at each other sometimes on Twitter. This led to, I got tagged in a pull request by Do What You Love, DYL. Nelson tagged me. He said, add async true to all tests, saves 8 seconds per test suite run. Thanks to Plick Joe for the reminder, and he linked to the YouTube video. So all of this led from a tweet, which led to me improving my test suite speed, which led to me showing the entire Phoenix LiveView community how to do it in their test suite, which someone watched said YouTube video, which allowed him to increase the test suite speed for an open source application, the Do What You Love authentication repository. So the number one thing you can do to increase your test suite speed is to throw an async true on your con cases and data cases. I think that's
all
it.
of our questions. Do you have anything to wrap up?
If you have any questions about Elixir, Phoenix, or the nature of software development on the human side or the machine side, jump in the comments and let us know what you're thinking.